pleasant good evening to Inshan Ishmael. Pleasant good evening, sir.
Good evening to you, sir.
Yeah, first of all, thank you. Well, viewers, assalamu alaikum to you, my friend.
Wa alaikum assalam.
And first of all, I want to thank you for taking this interview. I came to realize something very interesting today. I mean, it seems that in every bodies or every institution, there seems to be politics in the politics. And it's quite interesting. Trinidad and Tobago is very unique when you look at that. On October 7th, what took place in the Gaza, Hamas said that it was a response to what it described as Israel attacks on women, the desecration of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the ongoing siege of Gaza. 500 or more Muslims on Sunday afternoon marched around the Queen's Park Savannah in support of Palestinians living in the Gaza Strip. Tell us, why was that necessary, especially bringing that message here home to our local shores?
Firstly, what happened is that as a Muslim, we are taught that when one part of the body hurts, the entire body hurts. So it does not matter where a Muslim is located. It doesn't matter what part of the world. We are considered brothers and sisters. Now, mind you, that does not mean to say that we don't have people who are Jews or are not our brothers, or Hindus or Christians. At the end of the day, our Muslims are brothers of faith and sisters of faith accordingly. So this was just a show of support. It was a show of solidarity. And this is not just Trinidad and Tobago. This is all over the world. If you look at world news, you will see people coming together in a show of strength. Because, I mean, what is taking place? I mean, there are coins and there are documents. I just saw a document by the Ottoman Empire showing that a family had occupied land since over 100 years. I mean, when you look at what is taking place, you could take Gaza and put it in Trinidad, and it would occupy just the southern part and put in 2 million people there and asking them to survive. It is ridiculous. It is horrendous. It is unacceptable.
And of course, you know, the average citizen would always say, listen, it's not my problem unless it's on my doorstep or if I am directly affected. You know, those would have weighed in and said, listen, you know, well, Inshan, there's 461 murders here. We have home invasions. We have children that are being killed, extortion rackets, and so much taking place. Tell us.
No, I agree 100%. But what happens is that there's always two sides to a coin, and let us look at this realistically. I have been arrested 7 times, and out of those 7 times, it's only one time that someone tried to set me up for something I didn't do, and that was the common assault charge where they claim I pulled a gun on a man, and that turned out to be totally bogus. Now, what happened is that the other 6 times, I got arrested for standing up and protesting, and it was in doing so for my country. I don't know if you're aware, but about 15 years ago, I sent $7 million plus to the Horn of Africa.
Yes.
And you would have probably seen a photo where there was a child, and a Kobo was waiting to pounce on that child, and the child was in a position of death. And that photo was photo of the year. I believe it was in Time magazine. And that photo and many other photos came from Somalia. And when we showed this, I was able to raise in 3 weeks $7 million. We were recognized by the government of Dominica for putting together a badge with 50,000 tons of food stuff and building supplies. Myself and Ashmid Ali and others, and we came together and we took a private plane and we went across to Dominica. We sent 21 containers to Haiti during the earthquake. So when you look at what I have done, because we have assisted India, Pakistan, you name it, we have not only done work in Trinidad and Tobago, we gave 45,000 hampers during COVID. We have raised over $10 million in aid for children who are in need. So we are not ignoring the plight of people here. We have not tried to we have not pushed things aside. This is part of a bigger picture. We don't have phosphorus, white phosphorus pouring on our heads and watching the flesh of children and adults melting away. We don't have bombs falling on our head. Look, for example, 2 hours ago, the hospital in Gaza, it was bombed. 500 people dead. Imagine a hospital is a place where you go to recover. You don't go to a hospital to be murdered. So what we have here and what we have in Gaza and Palestine cannot be compared. It's so country.
Now, when you look at what you're saying, basically, the British Broadcasting Corporation, the BBC, simply does not label Hamas as terrorists. They don't. They leave that for whoever wants to come up with that at the end of the day, and that's their own prerogative. But is this a lot of stuff misunderstood here? Because when people say, terrorists, they simply want to blanket every Palestinian, every Muslim, every individual, when in fact that is not true. Why is this so misunderstanding? Why is that misunderstanding?
Well, you have to understand that Muslims all over the world, even in Trinidad and Tobago, remember the carnival plot we had here where Muslim terrorists wanted to stop carnival and nobody was charged? Yeah. When you look at so many incidents all over the world, Muslims have always been labeled as terrorists, and that is something we are trying to change because of Islamophobia. And the reality of it is that when you look at Palestine, right? Palestine, I mean, when you look, it's like I said before, when you go through the timeline and you see, Palestine since 1947, since 1939, the changes that were made when the Jews only controlled 6% of the population, and then all of a sudden, a few years after, it went up to 63%. When you see all this taking place, and land is taken away, and people are being thrown out of their homes, and people are being murdered because there were bombs which went off in the beaches, who is the real terrorist? And I've always said I will never stand up for violence. But you see, Hamas is not the government of Palestine. Hamas is one group of idiots who want to play here. We're going to play bad, we're going to do you something. But Hamas was wrong, because Hamas is not supposed to touch one grain of hair on a woman, not one grain of hair on a child. In fact, I don't know if you know this, Mikee K, but in times of war, you are not supposed to ill-treat your prisoners. You are not even supposed to kill a tree. Do you know that if a tree is in your path, you go around that tree during the time of war? That is how important a Muslim sees life, not only human life, but the very thing like trees and all those things. So therefore, coming back to your question about Muslims and terrorists and all that, we have always been labeled that. And imagine you living in an area, Mike, and all of a sudden now, boom, they come up to you and tell you, get out your house. And you say, okay, why? We want that area because we want to build a community, and you have no choice. All of a sudden, if you don't want to move, bulldozers come, pelt you out. Yeah. Imagine, they have been there since like I said, 1917, and they don't control their own water and electricity supply. Imagine foodstuff cannot even come in because borders are blocked around. Via it is air or water, you have to get approval. And this is the life that the people live there.
And that is the point. I mean, even in Christianity, if you're part of something and we have a shared ideology, there are some people who will, however, bend that ideology to suit their own interests. I mean, there are those, as you said with Hamas. Hamas does not represent the thinking of Islam or the principles of Islam. But there are those who will label themselves as militant. I mean, when you look at the early crusades with Christianity, that wasn't a pleasant thing. It's either you go for it, or if you denounce it, you're simply killed on the battlefield. And that's a fact of the matter. But you cannot blanket each and every individual to say that they are part and parcel of something, even to the point of saying, listen, we want to rescue those people in the Gaza, but they're being used as human shields. Is that an excuse?
Well, when you look, all right, let us look at it from both sides, right? It is said that men gone with these, what do you call it again, boy? Oh, I forgot the name. Parachutes. They go with paragliders, and they go with pickup trucks. Israel has the Iron Dome. Every 10 feet you have security, right? You cannot enter Israel with your big toe, without your big toe being shut out. And And that is a fact because they supply the world with technology. In fact, our spy equipment in Trinidad and Tobago was purchased from the Israelis. So when you hear that men would pick up that falling down and parachute going into an area, and then you have reports coming out that children were beheaded, and then actually it turned out to be a lie. For me, what pains me is that we are in the year 2023 when somebody could take out a camera and show something, but then we have AI, which could also give you false technology.
Right.
So for me, my biggest concern here is that I want the best, and we want the best. We want the Israelis to live in peace, and we pray for the Israelis, for God to protect the Israelis. We're praying for God to protect the Palestinians. And all we want is an end to this, because when is it going to end? What did the children do? What did those people in the hospital right now do? And I ask you this question, right? And this is something that I have asked a few people. Mikee K, you living like normal, and all of a sudden somebody come drag your pregnant wife out the door, kick her in her face, mash her in her stomach, right? You as a big man, and I know you, Mikee K, what would you do?
Well, definitely I will retaliate.
Good. Now let me ask you a question. When you go outside now and you see 50 people stand up and watching you with guns, you have no choice but to stand back, correct?
That's right.
Right. So imagine this and multiply this by thousands of people every day. This is happening. They're losing their home. Their children are being murdered. Their wives are being killed. And you are literally drinking dream water. What do you think that people will...
And again, as you mentioned, I mean, looking at it globally, and if you go back to the history, many of these groups and many of their followers once worked for the very same people who are now trying to eradicate and get rid of them. Bin Laden was a friend of the United States, let's not forget that. But when there was a fallout for whatever reason that he couldn't fulfill their objective, he became public enemy number one. And I wonder if people consider these things and look at it for what it is, rather than just taking whatever is said to them by mainstream media.
No, and therein lies the problem. Now, when the UN decided in I believe it was 1947, to grant the Jews and the Zionist Jews 55% of Palestine, right? That was not agreed upon, right? And 750,000 Palestinians were expelled from their homes. 530 villages, right, were destroyed. So when you look at throughout history till now, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. In fact, I'm sorry, what has changed is technology has changed. And now, instead of you hitting somebody on the ground and hoping that that will be your target, now you could stay 2 miles, 3 miles up in the air, and you sending down a rocket, and that rocket going within a few feet of your target. So, for me, all I want, as I said before, as a Muslim, is for us to let people understand that this is not about a Muslim thing only, because 15% of Palestine is Christians. 15%. So the fact is that what is going to happen with that 15% as well? Have you seen the videos when the Jews are passing and they see the Christians, they also spit on the Christians? So for me, this is something that is close to me, because I have always stood up for what is right. I own the Islamic Broadcasting Network, and I've always said that as a Muslim, we cannot stay wrong. There's a hadith, and by hadith I mean there are sayings and doings of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And that hadith is very clear. When you see a wrong, you have 3 choices. Physically try to stop it. The second one is to speak out against it. Or the third is to hate it in your heart. Mikey, we are living in Trinidad. We cannot physically stop it. But what we could do is speak out against it. Right?
And let me ask you, as far as the narrative, again, going back to that, where folks said, listen, Inshan, what's happening here? It begins at home before it goes abroad. Do you believe there was a matter of misunderstanding, not understanding what it meant for the local Muslim community, compounded with the fact that some people believe with the intensity and the fear that they're living under, they want to know that once someone is out there taking to the streets, it should be in the interest of the people first and foremost? What do you think really contributed to this narrative?
No, I think people have a right to feel that way, and because we have the worst leadership we have ever had in Trinidad and Tobago's history. And when you look at it as compared to our previous prime ministers, really and truly, we are going down a road and we are becoming the worst country, financially and otherwise, in the Caribbean. And I could understand that, but you see, if there's anybody who should fight for country more than anybody else, it should be me. And let me tell you why. I don't want to position by the way. I don't want to be no prime minister. Because I see the videos that many of you don't see. When Andrea Barra died, I was the one that witnessed the autopsy. I went there when they were doing what they had to do. So there are things that I see that other people don't see. And for me, what it is I could do, if I stand up tomorrow, is the first thing they're going to do, Mikey? They're going to arrest me. They're going to set me up again because that is what they do. Oh, yeah. So what happened to all the people on the outside? I am willing to support anybody if they want to protest, if they want to come together. But the fact is that for me, I am 55 years now. I have one foot in the grave, and God knows if tomorrow, the day after, I will disappear from this earth. But there are certain things I need to do first, where family and projects are concerned. And then I could step outside here again. But until then, I want the people of Trinidad to be able to understand that this is not about what is over there and what is over here. These are important issues, but across here, it affects our heart and liver. We cannot go to sleep at night because the images we are seeing of a child smoldering from a bomb hit to the head. Look, today I watched a video where a child said that he and his friend was running and his friend got a bullet to the head and his head split apart.
Sir, I want to thank you so much again. And of course, evening greetings coming from Errol Fabian, just to wish you good evening from Errol. All the best to you, my friend. Good luck to you and your entire team. I want to thank you so much for taking the interview and playing it. Take care. All the best.
God bless.
Inshallah.